Hello boys and girls, welcome to BenchART. I'm for Classic, and let me introduce to you Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster. So I'm running this on my GTX 1650 Super at 4K with the settings, with absolutely maximum settings over here. So as you can see, resolution scaling it is set to high, shadows are on, and on the display I'm using 4K resolution with no VSync. So first let's start with the requirements. These guys recommend the Phenom 2X2, 4 gigs of RAM, and the mere AMD HD 5770 or a GTX 450. So these are pretty well requirements, and this comes at no surprise since the game graphics looks really dated. Well, unfortunately, I have bad news about this game. I'm pretty sure people that were interested about this game already knew about this because there were already people complaining about online about this. But essentially, this is a very, very bad PC port. So, first of all, this game it is capped to 30 frames per second. Alright, so even with VSync off, you can try everything that you want. The game it is capped to 30 frames per second. You can't have more than that. This is completely outrageous for a PC game. For me, it's not really a big deal. I mean, cutscenes, they are fine at 30 frames per second. They look more cinematic. And even this turret-based combat at 30 frames per second, it is not a big deal. Although when traversing the map at 30 frames per second, it seems weird, you know, it seems unresponsive and it doesn't really make any sense. Well, I do understand why this game might be locked to 30 frames per second. This game was initially released in 2003, and Japanese games and developers always loved to tie the frame rates to the game physics and behaviors. So this might be one of the games that if the frame rate was unlocked, the game would have issues, and probably that's the reason why the game it is capped to 30 frames per second. Although, while this FPS cap might have an excuse, there is another thing with this port that doesn't have any single excuse. And the second thing it is the maximum resolution you can go in this game, it is 1080p. And you might be asking, whoa, hold on, I saw your settings and you were showing me 4K. Yes, that's true, that's 4K for the resolution of the screen, because the game internally it is being rendered at 1080p when you select the render resolution at high. So 1080p is the maximum you can go. Although there is already some tweaks online that allows you to go up to 8K. And so I applied some of those tweaks and I'm using 4K internally. Alright, so the game it is not being rendered at 1080p at the moment. It is being rendered at 4K because I have decided to use a tweak that is available online, and there is a link on the description of my video that takes you to the page which explains you how you could use this tweak to display internally at 4K. 8K it kind of lags when you are in the middle of a fight and there are particles all over the place. 8K, the GTX 1650 Super doesn't handle quite well, and you can expect drops to about 30 frames per second, but 4K it is absolutely fine. In my honest opinion, I think I would play the game just natively without any modes, because despite the difference between 1080p and 4K it is huge in numbers, the reality it is that this is a very old game. Scenarios are very stripped out, so you just have like these corridors. So you don't really notice too much of a difference between the game being rendered at 1080p and 4K. I know that this sounds a little bit bullshit and unbelievable, but it's true. This is a very old game. Everything looks so simple that I barely notice any difference between 1080p and 4K. The biggest difference that I've noticed so far it is on the tattoos of the main character. This is very noticeable though. But apart from that and some of the jaggies around the characters, there is no big difference in my opinion. So I would probably not apply this tweak that I've used. But anyway, I decided to try out with the tweak because it makes sense. If I'm going to make a video about this game running at 4K, I want the game to be rendered at 4K. And so that's exactly what is happening in here. I'm rendering the game at 4K. So now the third thing that I think that is completely off about this game. So it is the price. I mean, this is a bad PC port. You barely have any graphical options. The game internal resolution it is capped to 1080p. The game it is capped to 30 frames per second. So I mean, this looks like a very bare bones port to the PC, and yet they charge you $50 or €50 for the game on Steam. This is a full price game for a game that have almost 20 years old at the moment, where the remaster barely improves anything over the original one. This is completely a cash grab. I don't have any other explanation for this. This is a super cash grab from Atlas or whatever the team or publisher that is behind this decision. This is a super cash grab, and I'm a little bit disappointed because Atlas first, when they did release Persona 4 Golden, the game was costing €20. So I thought it was a nice price, a fair price, because Persona 4 it was old, and yet it is a game that have much more graphical options than Shin Megami Tensei 3. Then came Persona 5 Strikers, and since it's a new game, it made sense for me to pay for the full price for the game. But now Shin Megami Tensei, I think it is an older game than Persona 4. It is a worse port than Persona 4, and yet it costs $50. So I think they are trying to cash grab a little bit. Don't get me wrong, the game it is excellent. Alright, so if you did enjoy Persona, this game it is more of the same, aside that this game doesn't feature pretty much any social component. So it's a story about the end of the world, and you get transformed into a demon, and you need to fight at the style, I mean Persona style, and you have a backstory about it. But it's not as social or teen-aging or a meme style as it is in Persona. So it's a different theme. And in case you are wondering if this is a spin-off of Persona, no, that's quite the opposite. Shin Megami Tensei, it is the original games. Personas are the spin-offs. The thing is, the Persona got more famous over time than Shin Megami Tensei, and so for that reason it is easy to assume that Shin Megami Tensei it is a spin-off from Persona, but that's not really the case. Persona it is a spin-off from Shin Megami Tensei. But essentially, you know what you can expect. Even the attacks and some of the creatures are basically the same between Persona and Shin Megami Tensei. It's just the universe and the story behind it. It is completely different. There is no time of day in year like it is on Persona. So it's more focused into the story, and that's about it. And there is no teenaging and social components behind it. So regarding the game, I think the game it is awesome. Obviously it is super dated. This is a 2003 game, remastered with small improvements. It is a super dated game, and it is super expensive, and it is a super bad port for the PC. And when I claim it is a bad port, I'm not talking about the performance. It's just really the lack of options, the 30 frames per second limits, and the lack of the ability to go above 1080p in its internal rendering resolution. Alright, so guys, I think that's all that I want to talk about Shin Megami Tensei 3. Hope you keep enjoying the rest of the video. I had to remove the music due to copyright strikes, so this might sound a little bit weird to watch these fights anyway, but that's about it. Thank you a lot for watching, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
What the hell? That actually hurt! Hey!